Welcome back to Cheddar's Opening Bell, everyone. The pandemic has forced people to rely on tech more than ever before. Right now, we're using these tools to work, go to school, exercise, and even go to the doctor. But it also means an increased need for cybersecurity. And I'm joined now by Mark Fields, the former CEO of Ford Motor Company and current board member of Tanium, a cybersecurity firm valued at nearly $9 billion. Mark, it's great to have you with me this morning. Before we get into cybersecurity, I do want to get your take on the 1,400 buyouts and layoffs that Ford announced yesterday. You did helm this company for nearly 3 years until 2017. Are these layoffs the best way to deal with the impact of the coronavirus?
Well, I think every automaker these days, including Ford, is looking at their business, making assumptions on what demand is going to be like in the post-COVID world the rest of this year and into next year and beyond. And I think they're making appropriate adjustments to their cost structures based on their assumptions going forward. So this to me is just endemic of every CEO, whether it's an automaker or just in general. It's probably gone from let's ride out the COVID issue to how do we reinvent? And I think that's what you're seeing at Ford and at other companies.
So let's talk about reinvention briefly in the auto world, because you spent so much time in that before the transition to cybersecurity. Ford stock is still down year to date. Meanwhile, Tesla is up some 500%. And we do see new entrants in the EV space also soaring, like Nikola and other companies. NIO is another one, for example. Does Ford occupy a space in this electric vehicle market? And at what point do you think, or what needs to happen to get investors to be behind those EV efforts?
Well, I think what you're seeing at companies like Tesla, investors are looking at growth. They're looking at the fact that they just finished their Shanghai plant. They're building their plant in Germany. They're opening another plant in Austin. All the products that they've announced, whether it's the Cybertruck or their Class 8 truck, are all incremental. So I think investors are looking at the growth. They're looking at the fact that electrification is going to grow as a percent of the industry around the world. A lot of that driven by government regulation and pressures on reducing CO2. And I think the brands like Ford, which are in the process of introducing a number of new products, the first one coming late this year, is the Mach-E. I think, this is the first time Tesla's actually going to have some real competition. And so I think, making investments in electrification and autonomy, and at the same time, a company like Ford, which is a profitable business, sells over 6 million vehicles a year, produces positive cash flow, all those things I think are very important and help the case for Ford and other traditional OEMs going forward to be able to run their traditional business profitably and use that to fund the future, like electrification and autonomy.
Okay, so let's now pivot to what you're currently doing as a board member of Tanium. Explain what you're doing there and why cybersecurity is so important these days when so many more of us, are using technology more than ever.
Yeah, Kristen, the reason I decided to join the board of Tanium is a couple of different reasons. And the first one you just hit on, it's cybersecurity is a critically important need right now. And it's driven by three factors. First, you have the advent of more devices that are being part of companies' networks. And part of that will be accelerated greatly with the advent of 5G and what they call edge devices. There will be an explosion of devices added to company infrastructure. Secondly, you have the advent of the cloud. And so you have the access, an employee has access to the computing power of their company's IT services around the world in any place. So that will also increase the explosion of these number of devices that are connected. And the third factor is work from home. You're going to have a lot more people not working in one company location. It's going to be very distributed. So for all those reasons, cybersecurity is probably the number one or number two issue on CEOs' minds. And that's why it's so important. And when you look at Tanium, and the reason I joined the board is, listen, it has a leading edge product and service that allows this real-time endpoint visibility and control. And it has a great management team and a great company that has a really great growth trajectory over the last number of years. So for those reasons, cybersecurity is important today, and it's going to become even more important tomorrow.
So the dynamics of this job market, Mark, are still challenging. That was on display this morning when we got the jobless claims numbers. As companies scale back and they make cuts in some areas of their business, are you seeing, is there data that you can cite that these companies at the same time are making higher investments into cybersecurity?
Absolutely. All you have to look at across the Fortune 500, look at the number of chief security officers that have been added to the C-suite over the last 12 months. That is a very big indication that protection of data and security of whether it's your employees or your customers' data is so important, or your company's data. And so I think you're seeing IT spending as a percent of revenues in literally every company inching up. And more importantly, during a downturn, as you mentioned, as revenues come down because of the economy slowing, I don't think you're seeing any CEO or CIO letting up on making sure that they're investing appropriately to protect their company's data, their employees' data, and their customers' data, because it's about trust.
All right. Mark Fields, we got to leave it there. I wish we had more time to chat. Mark is the former CEO of Ford Motor Company and board member of the cybersecurity firm Tanium. Thank you.